But George Clooney, I realize this isn't the most important news, but it's interesting, is now starring on Broadway in Good Night and Good Luck. And I guess at the end of this show, he turns around and looks at the audience and offers a lecture.
Three estates fail. When the judiciary and the executive and the legislative branches fail us, the fourth estate has to succeed. Has to succeed. As 60 Minutes is here right now on our first day. ABC has just settled a lawsuit with the Trump administration. Journalism and telling truth to power has to be waged like war is waged. It doesn't just happen accidentally. You know, it takes people saying, we're going to do these stories and you're going to have to come after us. And that's the way it is.
Yes, I don't know if you've seen this. President Donald Trump touched Hollywood actor George Clooney after he sit down with 60 Minutes, ripping the Oscar winner as a second-rate movie star and accusing CBS of orchestrating a puff piece to rehab both Clooney and the Biden campaign implosion he helped accelerate. I don't know if this guy actually realized this. He struggled to lecture people on things they already know. I saw this video and it is important. I show you Megyn Kelly sat down with Ben Shapiro to talk about this.
I was raised a Democrat in Kentucky, so I've had a lot of fun in my life. You can imagine. It's been nothing but fun.
Sure.
And, you know, I've lost a lot of elections. The first time I voted, it was 1980, so I was a Carter guy, and Reagan won. And then I lost to some Bushes, and I won with some Clintons and Obamas, and I lost. And, you know, this is democracy, and this is how it works. And, you know, what the hell are you
How'd it go this time for you? I forgot who you were supporting.
Well, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? You know, storm the f***ing Capitol? You know, it's like, it didn't work out. That's what happened.
Look, I hate to disagree with George Clooney about anything. It's like Sonny disagreeing with Idris Elba.
It will never happen.
Okay. But we had checks and balances under the Bushes. Those are gone thanks to the enablers in the Republican Party right now.
Yeah, I will acknowledge here that his wife, Amal Clooney, literally was complicit in some of the worst propaganda of the last several years. She was involved in the International Court of Justice's attempts to actually prosecute the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, for war crimes. She was a deep part of that. So she obviously wasn't speaking truth to power. She was part of the power. George Clooney has always been part of the power. This idea that he's ever speaking truth to power is nonsensical. That dude has more. He may have single-handedly been responsible for Joe Biden stepping out of the race. You recall that he wrote an op-ed in which he basically called for Joe Biden to step out of the race. And then the Democratic Party suddenly magically listened. So when he talks about this, like he's speaking truth to, what is the power inside, for example, his own party that he has ever spoken true, like real truth to and not been listened? I mean, he wields outsized powers. Again, this idea that he's like a powerless person who's fighting for the rights of the journalistic establishment. The journalistic establishment is what brought us here. This sort of worship that Clooney and others have for the journalismers is truly amazing, given how poor they have been at actually exposing truth to the light of day. He's speaking beyond a point where people have any respect for journalistic establishment at all. I don't know who he's talking about. The American approval of the journalistic establishment is in the 20% range. So who is he even talking to right now, dreaming of a time when journalists were these speak truth to power, fedora wearing, hard-boiled, walking around the streets of Chicago reporting, like who
working
are these
class
people he is talking about? Yeah, exactly. It's all nonsense.
You know, it's amazing to watch him talk about this. Like, now's the time. Where was he during COVID? You know, you saw last week the New York Times with its aha moment on COVID. You know what? We really need to talk about the fact that this looks like it came from a lab. How is it we didn't talk about that for 5 years? Because you, New York Times, were calling people racist who said it looks like it came from a lab. Like, and then Bill Maher the other night had this like aha moment of like, geez, it really looks like Fauci may have been kind of a villain and not, you know, all these leftists are coming around to the truth of things like, one example, 5 years later than the rest of us, because George Clooney's idea of journalism is to just toe the party line when it helps the left and say what needs to be said and bury what needs to be said, as so long as it will hurt the right.
I mean, I'm just wondering, who are these journalists who aren't covering the Trump administration? They're like, who are they? It'd be great for him to call them out.
Right.
Hey, who are these journalists who are
down.
being so nice to the Trump administration all the way through? And when he talks about settlements that these various outlets are making with President Trump, that's because they literally engaged in slander and libel of President Trump. And they thought that they were going to lose a big settlement to him. It's not because they're trying to buy access to the president of the United States by paying him money. And if he's going to make that actual argument, then probably he should just make that argument.
Till day, these people can't take it. They have been crying every single day about this settlement. I have seen this over and over. Even till now, they can't even still balance. If you made a mistake about someone, you should be able to own up and stand up for it. These people realize, like, they won't make it in court, or they didn't like to proceed with it. Reason they decided to settle. That was the best way. So these people coming here to run like they made a big mistake is crazy. Not only ABC, I have seen people, even Twitter, settle Facebook, settle Trump because they didn't want to drag things out.
And as you say, it's not just that he said nothing. It's that he was there and said nothing for weeks until it became perfectly obvious that Joe Biden was going to absolutely get clobbered by Trump in November. And at that point, that's when he stood. Now, it would have been something if after that event, like the day after, he had said, yeah, I saw him on stage. He looked terrible, and we really need to get rid of him. Even that would have been late, because the reality is that George Clooney has had access to Joe Biden for several years at this point, and Biden's been ailing. But as you say, the timeline doesn't match up. And again, I don't know why Democrats insist on throwing actors out there to pretend that they are the role that they are playing.
Right.
George Clooney is not a doctor because he was on ER. And George Clooney is not a journalist because he's in Good Night and Good Luck.
And because he was in One Fine Day with Michelle Pfeiffer back in 1996. You were still in your cradle. But they starred. I loved this movie because I was a young, kind of always aspiring journalist back then. I was a practicing lawyer, but I had been told in high school I should be a journalist. It was always in the back of my head. And so I love this movie because she's like this, up and comer. And he worked, I think, for the New York Daily News or something like that. But anyway, it was like the two of them at the height of their fame.
Yes, the way the mainstream media is struggling to report this, like the interview appears to have touched a nerve as the president unleashed on Clooney in a late night screw on Truth Social. Trump ripped the actor for having done Biden like before backing Vice President Kamala, and also resurrected claims about CBS editing of Harris' 2024 60-minute interview central to his $10 billion lawsuit, and took fresh shot at the media embarrassing and dishonest handling of coverage leading up to the election. Trump did not actually play with this because it triggered him to a way I didn't see coming. When you take a look at what Trump said, why would a now highly discredited 60 Minutes be doing a total puff piece on George Clooney, a second-rate movie star and fair political pundit? He fought hard for Sleepy Joe election, and then right after the debate, dumped him like a later, I assume under others from the Obama camp, push all out for Kamala, only to soon realize that that was not going to work out too well. 60 Minutes even finally inserted fake news, fake answers into her disastrous interview just before election day in one of the most embarrassing and dishonest events in broadcast history. And now, just Clooney again, his press agent should be making a fortune. That is Trump responding to this guy. Trump did not blink. He went there, start calling Trump name again. Crazy, right? We saw what happened with Obama during that time. They had this fundraiser. Biden was really unaware what was actually happening. If you see any clip after this, that is just for the YouTube algorithm. You can stop here. God bless you.
The nerds that own the politician, all
nerds.
these tech nerds that want to build robots because they don't know how to talk to hot women.
Kid Rock was here a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I want you to meet Trump. He said, I'm going to take you to the White House. So now we're going to do that.
I think that's
and
a good
there will be
conversation.
lots of people on the left who will be like, how dare you talk to this man? It's like, you know, I'm not where
When I look at my life right now and I ask myself, which political party has made my life worse? It's not the Republican Party. Locally speaking, the Democrats have complete control and they have nearly destroyed my family's livelihood. Okay? We are living in trash and squalor
Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho.
Done nothing but talk smack about the president since day one.
Actually moderate, against war, anti-war.
Good for you. Well, the two stars are Gal Gadot, before you, who she was in the Israeli Defense Forces. She's Israeli. And then Rachel Zegler plays Snow White. I think Gal plays I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut.
Or fuel on the fire that there's a potential.
The economy added 16 points.
Your show's on YouTube.
It's a different mechanism. It's the same thing, though.
Let me ask you your opinion on this. Saturday Night Live, 50th anniversary.
It's the same thing that when I see not all black Republicans, but I see a black MAGA person who is carrying Donald Trump's water and they know that he's lying. It is the shortest line to the front. Because if you're black and you're whatever, you're just in line with a bunch of other Democrats that are doing the same thing that you're doing.
And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself.
The nerds that own the politician, all these tech nerds.